Hello, IB English students, and welcome to the Quarter 2, Week 11, Day 2 video. This video is for those students who were absent from our live Zoom class today. You'll need to open the assignment that says Spot the Error Exercise, RONCS. As a reminder, everything you say, do, or type is recorded, so please remember to keep it school appropriate. And as always, there's no saving, downloading, or taking pictures of our class today or ever. All right, our agenda. We're going to do the spot the error exercise, right? Working with run-on sentences and comma splices. And then the remainder of the time in class was used for you to be reading Perfume and working on those reading questions. So first, let's review the different sentence structures that we have. A simple sentence consists of a subject and a verb and an object, but there's an asterisk there because the object can be, it's optional. It's not always there. So for example, the simple sentence, Tracy sings, is complete. It expresses a full idea. It has a subject and a verb. Bob eats pizza is also a simple sentence, right? Bob is our subject. Eats is the verb. Pizza is the object. The object of a sentence is the thing that receives the action of the verb. So the pizza is being eaten, right, by Bob, right? But if you ask yourself the question, Bob eats what, right? Pizza. The object is the answer to your question for what. So at this time, it would be your turn to take a look at this simple sentence and identify its parts, right? Students want info. Which word is the subject? Which word is the verb? And which word is the object? The next sentence we're going to talk about are compound sentences. This is when you have a subject, a verb, and again, optional, an object, some kind of glue to hold them together, which I'll talk about that in a second, and then another subject, verb, and object, right? A whole other sentence, okay? So for example, Tracy sings is a full sentence, right? A simple sentence, comma, and, right? Because and is one of those conjunction words when we use it with this comma here. That's my glue. And then Bob eats is my other simple sentence, right? Bob is the subject, eats is the verb. Bob eats 2 tacos, semicolon. He calls them his treats, right? Bob eats 2 tacos is the first simple sentence. Bob is the subject, eats is the verb, and then the thing that is being eaten are the 2 tacos, so that's the object. The glue holding this sentence together, instead of a coordinating conjunction like this, like and a comma, I use the semicolon because we're still talking about the same subject, Bob. That's why the subject of this sentence is he, right? The pronoun he. And then we're still also talking about the tacos, right? He calls them his treats. So we're still talking about the same person and we're still talking about the same object. They're so closely related that I can use this semicolon to glue the sentences together. Your turn. In the sentence, broken hearts need time, semicolon, they are so fragile, please identify the subjects and the verbs and the objects in the sentence, as well as the glue holding them together. Okay. The third type of sentence is called a complex sentence. This is when you have a simple sentence, right? Subject and verb, or subject, verb, and object, a comma, and a fragment, right? An incomplete thought. Fragments are described as sentences or sentence parts that have something missing. So it might be, just the verb and then the object is given, or it might be just the subject is given, etc. It depends on the situation. When you look at this sentence, right? Tracy sings, comma, soulfully and with much feeling. Tracy is our subject, sings is our verb, and then here, soulfully and with much feeling, that is not a sentence by itself. That's a fragment, but it's describing how she sings, right? To set up that dynamic, you always need to make sure that you put in a comma between the full sentence here and the fragment that comes after. If you wanted to, right, you don't have to use this comma, right, to join these together. You can simply just write it without the comma. I put the comma in there to demonstrate that it's something that needs to be separated, right? A little visual. Another helpful tip is whenever you're using a sentence like this, right, writing a complex sentence, you should be able to read the sentence backwards and it should still make sense. So for example, soulfully and with much feeling, comma, Tracy sings. That would also be correct. Without thinking, comma, Bob pressed enter. Right? Without thinking is my fragment, right? Bob is the subject, pressed is the verb, and enter, or the enter key, is your object here. I show you this to demonstrate that, just like I mentioned up here, the fragment in your sentence can go either at the beginning, like in this one, right, without thinking, comma, or it could go at the end of your sentence, soulfully and with much feeling, etc. Right? So again, if I use my little trick with the one comma switcheroo, right, Bob pressed enter, comma, without thinking. Now it's your turn. Class started, comma, long before I got there. Be careful with this one, right? Identify the full sentence first, and then identify the fragment, and then label the elements in that full sentence. What is the subject? What is the verb? Okay. You can use this key to double check your answers, make sure that you got the correct answers, right? The one I just will point out is the last one that trips people up. Class is your subject. It's not a person, but it's still a thing that's doing the action, right? Started. That's your full sentence. Long before I got there is the fragment. That's why we have the comma there. A general tip or something that can help you figure out, have you written a fragment, or what part of a sentence is a fragment? If you walk up to a person, excuse me a second. If you walked up to a person and said, class started, that would express a full idea, right? They would probably be like, okay, I'll go to class. But if you walked up to a random person and just said, long before I got there, that doesn't make any sense, right? We can't understand what you're talking about because we need more information. That's the very nature of what a fragment is, right? A part of a sentence that doesn't give us enough information so that we can understand what's going on, right? I call it like the walking up to a stranger rule. So use that as best you can. The last sentence structure we're going to talk about is what's called a compound complex sentence. Basically, it adds everything together. You'll have a full sentence, right? Subject, verb, and object, a comma, a fragment, some glue, and then a second full sentence. For example, Tracy sings, comma, soulfully and with much feeling, comma, but Bob cannot carry a tune. Tracy sings is the first full sentence, comma, soulfully and with much feeling is that fragment. The glue holding all of this stuff together, right, is the comma and the conjunction word but. Bob is my next subject. Cannot carry is the verb phrase. And then a tune is the object, the thing that he cannot carry. Okay. Another example. Before the meeting, comma, Bob reviewed his presentation, comma, and it went very well. Before the meeting is the fragment. There's a comma to separate it from the full sentence. Bob reviewed his presentation. Bob is my subject. Reviewed is the verb, and his presentation is the thing being reviewed. So that's the object. I need glue to add in a new sentence, right? So comma and. It is my subject for the second sentence, which is a callback to the presentation, right? Went is the verb, and then very well is what is receiving the action, right? The quality of the presentation. Now it's your turn. In the sentence, Janet knew without having to check, her instincts guided her. Identify the subjects, the verbs, and the objects of the sentence. Identify the coordinating conjunction or the glue holding things together, and that comma that separates the full sentence from the fragment. Okay, taking a look at the key, right? Janet knew is your full sentence, comma, without having to check is the fragment. The glue holding the sentences together is the semicolon, because I'm still talking about a closely related issue, right? Her is still talking about Janet. And then the instincts is related to what she knew instinctively, right? And then guided is your verb, and her is the object, right? She's guiding herself. All right. For this exercise, I asked students during class to combine these sentences using the techniques we talked about. You could just do something on the left and combine it with something on the right. Or if you really wanted to test yourself, you could try and combine all 4 of these on the left into one sentence, or all 4 of these on the right into one sentence, or masterclass, all 8 of these sentences into one sentence. A very quick example, right? Cats are cute, comma, but dogs are cuter, right? I would need to add in that glue to tie them together. You can do something similar with these other sentences as well. The next part of your assignment looks like this, right? And this is asking you to read through this paragraph and spot the run-on errors and the comma splice errors. Again, I would suggest you read this out loud to yourself, or even better, use Google Read and Write and have the computer read it out loud. If it sounds like the computer is is jumbling ideas and not stopping when a full idea has been completed, you've just identified where there's a run-on or where there's a comma splice. So you would pause it and then highlight it. So take a look at the errors that you see here. All right, and identify where do you see run-ons and where do you see comma splices. And again, comma splices are run-on sentences that just have a comma between the 2 full sentences. Okay, so did you catch the 2 run-on sentences highlighted in blue? Did you catch the 2 comma splices highlighted in this reddish color? Okay. When we look at these individually, on your sheet at the bottom, you're asked to fix. How could you fix this run-on sentence, right? Where does the first sentence end and where does the second sentence begin, right? There are 3 ways to fix run-on sentences and comma splices, right? You could either put a period between the 2 full sentences, right? You could put a comma and a coordinating conjunction to tie the 2 sentences together if you're trying to show some kind of relationship there. Or if the 2 sentences are closely related, if they're talking about the same idea and carrying on the same line of thought, you can use a semicolon. So you're going to take the time to fix these 4 sentences. How would you fix this one? How would you fix this one? How would you fix this one? And how would you fix this last one? Please pause the video and complete that part of the assignment, and then click submit when you're done. Okay. All right, so that was the activity that we did during class. Again, the remainder of the time is for you to be reading Perfume, right? The link to the PDF is here. The link to the audiobook to begin listening to it is there. I would suggest you start with the audiobook so you can get the pronunciation of the main characters' names, especially because some of them are a little difficult because they're in French. And then begin working on the reading questions. Again, you'll need to make a copy of your own copy of the document, fill in the answers, and then once semester 2 begins, you can copy and paste your answers into that document there. Again, with the questions, right, there's literal questions, which the answer is explicitly stated in the text. Interpretive questions, the answer is not explicitly stated in the text, but you should be able to figure it out by reading between the lines and then use a quote to support your answer. And the global question is asking you to link the events in the book to some kind of common human experience. You also have the line of inquiry reflection at the bottom, right? So maybe at the end of each chapter, stop and ask yourself, did the idea of identity, culture, creativity, et cetera, did any of those come up? If so, where? What do you think the author is trying to say about that? And then use a quote to fill that in. to kind of support that, identifying at least one example of a literary device, right? Diction, imagery, details, language, or syntax that the author uses in your quote to make that statement about your line of inquiry topics. And that's it. Sorry, ignore this part about the perfume contacts. That's from last week. Hold on a sec. Okay, there we go. So your action items actually are, make sure you turn in today's exercise, work on reading perfume and answering those reading questions. And if you need any support, right, I'll be available from 2:45 to 3:15 on Thursday and Friday this week. Thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in class soon.